Okay, and we have another episode of the Value Quanta series, and that is Are You Too Polite? But first, quote of the video above: Where pride is insistent enough, memory prefers to give way. That's a Nietzschean quote. I forget where that's from. Yeah, I don't quite remember where that's from. But I love that quote. And the recommended books: Eric Fromm's Escape from Freedom, and then The Denial of Death by Ernest Becker. Got the hard copy right here. Such an awesome book. This is like my fourth time reading it. And then the current tasting: Alsace Gewürztraminer, 2017. Not a huge fan of Gewürz, but it's pretty good. Okay, on to the episode. Are you too polite? I've pretty much always been a very polite person. When I was very young, and still am very polite. However, I never really thought to ask myself why that is, or even what benefits and consequences that has. It just kind of was always the way I was, and it's the way I am. It wasn't even, it's weird, up until recently, it wasn't even a dimension that I thought too much about. And to be honest, I thought that it was a negative, or mostly negative. But anyway, and I only realized recently again that it is considered to be a part of the big five personality aspects, which is surprising. But what do I know, of course. But I am quite high in it. And right here I did the I did a personality test. It was one that Jordan Peterson recommended, I believe, because he created it along with his colleague or colleagues. But the Understand Myself, the Big Five Aspects scale at understandmyself.com. And it's one dimension of two of agreeableness. But I just wanted to read the politeness section here. It's not long. You are high in politeness, which is one aspect of agreeableness. Your score puts you at the 81st percentile for politeness. If you were one of 100 people in a room, you would be more polite than 81 of them and less polite than 18 of them. Highly polite people tend to be deferential to authority and are generally obedient. They are respectful and hate to appear, or to be, pushy. They are uncomfortable challenging other people. Highly polite people will try diligently to avoid conflict and have more intense desire than average to steer clear of confrontations or fights. That does sound like me, although more of an earlier me, I would say earlier in my customer service career. And especially very early, kind of at the start of my customer service career, it was just kind of like, not to mention having just like high levels of anxiety and being intimidated and all that kind of stuff entering, a real life career. But politeness just sort of came with that. And I've often thought about what could have made me that way from the start. And I don't know for certain, I don't think I ever will, but I've speculated that maybe it's because of growing up in a household that was strict, with a domineering and highly imposing father. And that sort of made me tailor my mindset and actions to being agreeable in order to mitigate the level of conflict. It's like not wanting to do something wrong or to upset someone. So you develop this defense, I guess, of being highly polite and deferential to authority. And I'm sure a part of it is just who I am also, right? But this, it seems to have guided me through, but even before that, into a career life in customer service, and why I've always done very well, or partly why I've always done very well within it, which I'm quite proud to say. And it is what it is at this point. Now I want to optimize and use what I have, accept who I am, and being high in politeness has served me very well when it comes to customer service and helping others. And I think it has had some very interesting benefits, which I see in day-to-day life also, in that I'm very often remembered by people that I deal with at the various places I visit, whether it's coffee shops or retail stores or grocery stores. And I have a tendency and an easier time developing new friendships to those people. And that always made me feel really good. And one of the unique things I noticed within those places like retail environments and grocery stores and that type of thing is that being polite and showing a concern for how people are doing can have a huge impact. And one of the things, I honestly don't try too hard, especially now too with a lot of the self-serve checkouts. And I'm literally just thinking of this right now, because previously I would always go to cashiers and things like, and people actually check the groceries out. Wow, that's totally throwing me off. I just thought of that now. But anyway, one of the things that it happened sort of naturally was, and I guess this would happen with more with females than males, and for whatever reason, I won't get into that. But I guess I was just naturally being polite, and it just put a smile on their face. When I was standing in line waiting to be served, they kind of have that very neutral look on their face, kind of going through the motions, which you expect of someone that has a very repetitive job like that. But I kind of just walked up and said hello, how's it going, and but in a more enthusiastic and engaging way. And then the smile kind of popped up onto their face, and it was super nice to see that. It felt good to maybe change things up for them, and then they noticeably were a little more enthusiastic, and it just seemed to react a bit better and have more interest in the moment. And that was really cool, and something that, like I said, I don't actively try to do it. I don't go in and be like, okay, yeah, now I'm gonna like fake it, or try and be unnatural or overly whatever in order to get that result. But I just try and be very natural in that respect. And then, if that ends up happening where it maybe brightens up someone's day for just a moment, great. But if not, I can't control others, and I can only control myself. But that's one other really cool benefit that I saw of just having a general level of politeness. But it also comes with consequences, definitely. And the consequences are something I thought of even less, if at all, really. And it is kind of a rude awakening, I would say, because the way I started kind of picking up on it was actually through a girl that I was seeing at the time. And we were at a restaurant, and I was very polite to, I think it was a waiter. And her comment after that was just like something like, "You're such a salesman. You're too salesman-like. It just seems fake." And I remember being just shocked. I was like, "What?" Like, and it really hit me hard. I was like, "Oh my God!" Like that's not what I was doing at all, or I wasn't trying to be fake. And I was kind of shocked, and I didn't really say too much beyond that. And then nothing happened after that date. Like, it was over after that. But I remember sending a message after we'd had dinner, and I just said, like, that was really out of line. Like, you had no right to say that. I've worked very hard in my ability to communicate and just my general mentality and the way I carry myself and all those kinds of things. And I just said, you were way out of line, and you have no right to do that. And whatever, I don't remember the exact message, but after that, I kind of started to see that politeness can be perceived in a negative way. And, I'm not exactly sure of her reasoning behind it. Maybe she was hurt by someone that appeared polite. But either way, I don't know. And the hardest part of it, I think, was the faking it, being told that you're being fake. Because that to me is what hit me most. And I'm like, what? Like, that is the last thing I ever want to be, is fake. Like, there's no way. Like, I'm not trying to bullshit or be something I'm not. So anyway, either way, don't bullshit, because people will see through it. And even if you're very good at it, you will make a mistake, and lies, no matter how small, will come to light, or they'll culminate and be brought to light. And because eventually you're gonna run into someone who is very smart, and they may sense this in you, and what they will do is watch you over time, or they'll maybe communicate in a way with you to where maybe those types of things will come out, and you might not realize it. And they'll just kind of watch you over time and interact with you over time, and then see how you react then, and see how you carry yourself when you aren't, on. And that will give them the real picture. And not only that, but you build yourself and the world around you on a foundation of untruths when you're not honest. And no matter how small the lies may seem, it's a very bad idea. So I think it kind of goes back to like that stigma of the greasy old school car salesman, which I have been labeled with by acquaintances and friends and others in the past. Again, more early on in my career, when you're kind of going through that phase of, what do you do? And I just say I'm an account manager, because that is what I am. I don't really say I'm in sales. I think that's one aspect of the job, but and it's like, do I want to avoid giving myself that label? Maybe to a degree, because of those previous stigmas and maybe that imprint they've left in my mind. But anyway, people will see right through it. And again, even if there are some that don't, you will run into someone that is smart and very emotionally intelligent and socially aware, and they will figure it out. So yeah, I mean, overall, these are some of the scenarios in which I really started thinking about the consequences of being too polite. And that's why I wanted to make this episode, because I am very polite. But as time has gone on, I've learned to manage it, and not only recognize it in general, but to see where it might not be necessary. It's like, no, you know what? Being polite is not the right move here. And one of the ways I've done that is by developing my ability to communicate verbally and in the written word. And that will offer a way to help balance being too polite, because it'll allow you to articulate yourself in ways that most people can't. And it will also help you in your interactions without having to resort to strong emotions like anger or frustration or even rage. And it isn't some voodoo or an attempt to deceive, inveigle, or obfuscate. There's a little throwback to the X-Files there. It's a bigger toolbox that allows you to react intelligently and articulate yourself It explains, it clarifies, it justifies, it details, it sets foundations, it sets boundaries, it builds empathy, and it reinforces relationships. Effective communication and developing it has been my absolute greatest tool in my life and in my career, and I still constantly strive to improve it. I cannot stress how important it is to improve that, to improve your ability to communicate. And again, it's a great way to balance that level of politeness, because it may be the case that something needs to be said, and if you aren't good or you're not effective in communicating your thoughts and thinking things through and then being able to articulate them, it will make it more difficult, and you'll likely resort to emotional responses. And that's where things can fall apart. And you're kind of just like butting heads with someone all the time, and it just creates these frustrations and resentments. And that's another area too that I want to mention. I know the last episode was where do your resentments lie, and that applies here too. And I want to just touch on that. I don't want to dwell too long because I spoke about it in the last episode, but stay very close to your resentments and where they're starting to spring up. And this is especially important for people like myself and those that are high in politeness. And I'd say high in agreeableness in general. But, politeness is a proxy where you can say, all right, in general, I'm a very polite person, but with this person, like, I have so many frustrations, or I resent them for this, this, and this. Okay. And like I said previously, do I need to just suck something up? Do I just need to grow up and just deal with it and figure out a way for to deal with it inwardly? Or does something need to be said? And that's where that effective communication comes in. I loved, I believe it was Jordan Peterson had this phrase, and I don't know if he took it from somewhere else, but it was something like, in this, you want to have a sword and know how to use it, but only unsheath it when absolutely necessary. And that's so insightful. And those are those cases where I know how to use it, but I'm going to use my words. I'm going to use my effective communication to disarm this, whether it's a person or a situation. So again, use the politeness as a proxy, and looking at where your resentments are is an incredible way to figure out how you can balance your politeness. You can't be extreme in one area without suffering in another. At least, I guess, from a psychological perspective, in the unconscious. So, takeaways. Pay attention to your politeness and where it manifests itself. Is it in the extremes where you're completely deferential to all authority and fail to speak up when something needs to be said? And that includes people that you might consider an authority, or they have authority over you, and not sort of in a structural or administrative way necessarily, but just people that you interact with on a day-to-day basis that you are kind of nervous or hesitant to speak your being forward. Again, as to borrow a phrase from Jordan Peterson, to speak your being forward around. That counts too. Pay attention. Begin to understand where it is having a positive as well as a negative impact in your career and in your life. Customer service roles offer plenty of opportunities to be polite, but there are also plenty where it can get you in trouble, where it is not the best solution. It may be a good short-term solution, but it is not an optimal long-term solution. And then you will suffer in those long-term scenarios. It, are you polite to everyone? No one. Are you polite only to people that you believe can help you climb or help you achieve something? Or are you only polite to authority figures? Digging deeper and understanding why will do a great deal to help you discern where you might need to speak up instead of holding back. Or where you might need to be more polite, where you may have traditionally been cold or indifferent or something like that. Number 2, in takeaways, is develop your communication skills in speaking and writing. They are bar none the greatest tools you can possess and will color everything that you do. Effective communication, it gives you more tools to manage those situations where you may need to fight back and stand up for yourself. And without it, you'll likely resort to emotional reactions like anger or frustration. And it can also help you be as clear and precise as possible, thereby helping to prevent unnecessary back and forth conflict and promoting expedient conflict resolution if something does come up, but making things clear and effective from the start. So hopefully no conflict comes up at all. And 3 is pay very close attention to your resentments. They're very likely to develop where politeness is excessive and does not feel justified or reciprocated. If it's not kept in check, the subconscious will push in the opposite way of politeness and eventually manifest itself in ways that you will have less control of, like disagreements, strong disagreements, arguments, or when being taken advantage of. And it will likely, these reactions will likely be ones that you will regret. And that I want to stress that lack of control or much less control over those reactions, because you see it when people just kind of snap, or they say something very suddenly and it's just filled with anger or even vitriol. And it's those types of things that come up. And within customer service and account management and long-term relationship building, it's so difficult to come back from scenarios like that because reputation is so crucial. And if you make a big error like that, it can be very tough, not only on you, but the person or people that you maybe said or did something to. And it's very difficult to come back from. So check your politeness. I had to, and I am in a much better place than I was overall because it just feels balanced. Being polite and agreeable is not the solution to every situation. It just simply isn't. You don't want to be walked on and just crushed in every scenario. There needs to be a balance. So understand it, check it. But then at the same time, use it. Learn about your politeness and take advantage of it and express it because it is an extremely valuable tool as well. As long as it's like I said, it's known within you and you know how to keep it harnessed and in check. Awesome. Well, that felt good. So are you too polite? Anyway, that's episode 4 of the Value Quanta series. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.